In the cameras and my wonderful mom in front of me. Well, good evening. My name is Tom Drogalis. I'm the Executive Director of the Schuylkill County Historical Society. And on behalf of our President Jay Zane and our many board members who are here tonight, let me go around the room. We have Linda Taylor, our Secretary, is here this evening. Dean Dellock, a longtime board member and heads up our research department. Don Bickle, our IT specialist, along with Bill Van Stone, our all-around wizard maintenance man, and everything else helps out. And who else am I missing? And Tom Shea is near and dear. And of course, how can I miss our board member, Al Franz, the guy who is, again, a jack of all trades, and he's handling the video. And also Tom Shea is a member of the society and does a wonderful job with our Civil War Roundtable. So again, if you missed the program we put out in April for the conclusion of the Civil War and the Lincoln assassination, it's on our website. Take a look at it. It's very well done. It was written and presented and put together a Tom fabulous job. And last and certainly not least, I want to recognize Diane Persimchak there in the back in that lovely mint green shirt that looks like a big ice cream cone. Diane is our gift shop volunteer and does an extraordinary job. Without her assistance, this place would not be half the way. So Diane, in front of everyone, sincere thank you. Tonight's program. Well, let me give you one preview, and then we'll talk about tonight's program. One of our upcoming events you may be interested in, we are working in collaboration with the Schuylkill Conservancy and hosting another bus tour. It's the North of the Mountain Bus Bash. It's going to be Saturday, July 25th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's up to date itinerary and details on this. You'll have some available in the gift shop. They fill up kind of fast. You register at the Conservancy, so not here, so we certainly recall to mention if you are a member of the society, please let them know. Okay? So, without further ado, I'd like to welcome you this evening to a presentation of Schuylkill County soldiers at the Battle of Little Bighorn. Tonight we are privileged and pleased to have with us Mr. Tommy Simons and Mr. Stu Richards. I think many of you know these gentlemen. They are two of the area's well-known historians and musicians and actors and all-around good guys. This is, I've heard Tommy a long time ago. This is the first chance we've met. It's a pleasure. Stu's been a board member and a big supporter of the society for quite a number of years. And let me give you just a dramatic reading of the last days of Private George Adams, a Minersville native, and Private Herman Knaup from Brandonville, as they march off to meet the Sioux Indians on the Little Bighorn in fall with General Custer. Now, I've been on board here as Executive Director just about 16 months, and I'll tell you what, I'm fascinated, folks. I'm originally from the Wilkes-Barre Scranton area. I followed my bride home to Schuylkill County about 35 years ago, so I think I meet my qualification of residency standards for Schuylkill County. The history of this county is extraordinary, not only in its, as you'll hear this evening, contributions to the various wars and conflicts, but to the metal and mining industry, to canals and railroads, musicians, authors, playwrights. It is really fascinating. And it is very complimentary to those people that are referenced that you would take your time out this evening. And I apologize to those of you who thought it was a 6 o'clock program. These guys are prime time. So they said, we don't go on till 7. So we push it back. And again, I hope that wasn't inconvenient. So without further ado, let's put our heads together and give a warm welcome to Oh, wait a minute. See that? And I think I know what I'm doing. Go ahead.
Okay, as Tom mentioned, I'm Tom Shea for the Civil War Roundtable, and thanks for coming out tonight.
Tom, excuse me if you can...
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I'm going to run over and grab a couple of things over here. So, on behalf of the Roundtable and the Historical Society of Schuylkill County, we wish to present this program, which features a dramatic reading of an account of the Battle of Little Bighorn. And my task is to give you about 5 minutes background, kind of set the stage for what you guys are going to portray. Battle of Little Bighorn was the last victory of the American Plains Indians. It was fought on the banks of the Little Bighorn in Montana Territory in June 1876. And if you're like, you know, many people my age or older, you probably pretty much got your history of General Custer and others from movies such as this. Errol Flynn portraying General Custer. They died with the boots on. Great entertainment, as I know, certainly Stu as a historian knows, a lot of laxness in the historical concept of it. But, you know, I grew up with that. I was watching this constantly, a lot of these kind of movies, and so it got me interested in this, you know, topic. But, of course, nowadays, there's a lot more historical background books like this now that can, The Last Stand, a recent publication, you can see how thick it is. So we have plenty of information now on Custer's Last Stand you can get that is fact-based. Okay? The Battle of Bighorn is the most discussed fight of the Indian Wars. It has been said that we will never know what happened because there were no survivors. Well, of course, realize that is nonsense. There are plenty of survivors. Certainly the Indians, and even some of the cavalrymen. There are thousands of survivors. There are also many misconceptions about Lieutenant Colonel George A. Custer and the 7th Cavalry. Among them, that Custer had long hair. Custer's hair was cut short. And that the regiment left its sabers, or took sabers into the battle, but they left their sabers behind. And of course, one of the most misunderstood facts regarding this battle is that Custer and all of his men were killed. Well, 7th Cavalry on June 25th, 1876, consisted of about 31 officers, 586 soldiers, 33 Indian scouts, and 20 civilian employees. They did not all die. When the smoke cleared on the evening of that battle, there were 68 wounded, 262 dead, and 6 later died of their wounds. Custer's battalion, that would be companies C, E, F, I, and L, were wiped out. But the majority of the 7 other companies survived. Those are the ones under Major Marcus Reno and Captain Frederick Van Kunen. The love of historical research and the desire to bring into life the lives of individual soldiers who hailed from Schuylkill County and fought in our various wars throughout our history has compelled Roundtable and Historical Society member Stu Richards to research and write the story of 2 individuals from Schuylkill County who fought at the Battle of the Little Bighorn. It is not the intention of our program to give you an exhaustive or critical narrative of General Custer or the battle, or even of the Indian Wars. Doing justice to the Indians and giving the story will take a lot more time than we have now. Tonight, we want to give a different kind of view. Not so much a written history, but more of a first-person account of what those 2 soldiers saw and experienced. You might ask, how can we do that when we were not at the battle and both soldiers died there? Well, there are many accounts of the actions of the days leading up to and including that fateful day. Stu has utilized all that information and what he knows about the soldiers and what he has experienced while riding in historical cavalry, the 5th U.S. Cavalry, for over 20 years. Let's get some quick facts on out so we can understand what had happened here at this campaign. First of all, a treaty was made in 1869 between the Sioux Nation and the United States for white men to stay out of the Black Hills. On November 3rd, 1875, the federal government opened the sacred Black Hills for the mining of gold. Sitting Bull and his band of Indians were ordered to return to the reservation by January 31st, 1876. If they did not return, they would be deemed hostile. The ultimatum was ignored, and on February 1st, 1876, the Sioux Indians now became the official problem of the War Department and the United States Army and military decided to strike the Sioux hard. The deadline had passed with none of the Indians returning to the reservation. During the ensuing months, a plan was devised that would produce a 3-pronged attack against the, quote, hostile Indians. The plan was to converge on and break up the concentration of Sioux and Cheyenne, thought to be in the Little Bighorn Valley, and force them back to the reservation. I've got a map here, just to give you just a general idea what we're talking about location-wise. This circle here, there's a little river coming down, and that's the Little Bighorn. That's the actual Bighorn River, the Little Bighorn being an offshoot, okay? This general area, as I hope you realize, is northern United States, near the Canadian border, the Dakotas, Montana territory, we live in a state at the time, but that's the area we'll be talking about. On May 12, 1876, General Terry and Lieutenant Colonel George A. Custer departed Fort Abraham Lincoln. Over in this area here, okay, we're going to have 2 columns coming this way, heading toward what they believe will be the concentration of the Sioux and Cheyenne. General Gibbon, he's from Gettysburg and other Civil War battles, I'm sure. He's in command of a force advancing from the west at Fort Ellis, okay? They're heading from the west, heading in now this direction, okay? And also another column coming up from the south, General Crook will be coming up from Fort Fetterman, Wyoming. So now you can see 3 converging columns on what is assumed to be the concentration of the Cheyenne and Sioux tribes. This combined force was commanded to assault and destroy the hostile Indian camps. Late in the afternoon of June 25th, 1876, Overlooking the Little Bighorn River, a force of Sioux and Cheyenne Indians attacked and overwhelmed General George Custer's battalion of 5 companies, consisting of 210 men. Thus was written the history of the famous last stand of George Armstrong Custer and the 7th Cavalry. The first news of the disaster reached the people of Schuylkill County on July 7th in the local paper, the Pottsville Weekly Miners Journal, with the short byline, War Feeling. The article read, "The rumor of the massacre of General Custer and his men by the Sioux Indians created a great deal of excitement in Pottsville yesterday. It was the universal determination not to believe the news until there was no room left for doubt. In case the army has to be increased in order to punish the savages, plenty of volunteers can be got for the asking in this county. That is, if one can judge from the talk of the people." Though the Little Bighorn is over 1,000 miles from Schuylkill County, there is an everlasting link and mystery tied to one of the most talked about battles in American history. 3 men from Schuylkill County died on that dusty plain 139 years ago. That will be tomorrow's anniversary. Marching out of Fort Abraham Lincoln on May 17th to the sounds of the famous cavalry song, "The Girl I Left Behind Me," were 3 Schuylkill County soldiers in the 7th U.S. Cavalry. Private George E. Adams from Minersville. Farrier William Heath from Girardville. Both of them are a member of Captain Calhoun's Company L. And also Private Harmon Knapp, riding with Captain Yates and Company F. Now, let us take a trip back in time along the forgotten trail. The trail will take you to a distant past, to a place that is famous in the annals of the history of the United States. It's a time of brave men, a time of death, a time of heroics, a time of cowardice and controversy, a time of sadness, a time of the famous campaign of soldiers and Indians of long ago. This is the story of Private Adams and Private Knapp.
Good evening, everybody. My name is George E. Adams. I was born in Minersville in July of 1846. I lived my childhood in the area, working in like most of the boys around the area, working in the coal breakers and on the fields and the coal banks. At the age of 23, I was weary of working within the coal fields. Full of adventure, I left the mines in 1869. I moved west, like many of the young people at the time, and with a whim, why I don't know, I enlisted in the 22nd U.S. Infantry at Fort Randall, Dakota Territory, a bleak place. I told the recruiting officer that I was a teamster by trade, having worked with mules and horses back home. You know, I was not really a good soldier, unfortunately. Soldiering on the plains in the late 1860s was trying and very hard. In March of 1870, I was court-martialed for a minor infraction. In 1872, I took part in that miserable, stinking Yellowstone expedition led by General Custer that went out looking for gold and prospectors and things out through the whole Dakota Territory. That was the first time I ever saw General Custer. I was an infantryman at that time. It was cold, it was wet, endless hours of marching. I became sick, so sick I could not continue on. I was discharged from the infantry on a surgeon's certificate for disability. In early February 1874, I once again enlisted in the service of the country, this time in the 7th U.S. Cavalry. Once again, discipline and military rules sometimes just didn't agree with me. What are you going to say? I was again court-martialed in January of 1875 for being AWOL, absent without leave. These charges were dropped because it was just a bad officer. Actually, I got away with it. Then in April of 1875 came my worst offense. Me and a few of the fellas got hold of some whiskey, and I was charged with being drunk on duty and sentenced to 6 months hard labor. In May of 1875, I was released from the hard labor and was sent back to Company L of the 7th U.S. Cavalry at Fort Lincoln, near Bismarck, North Dakota. In mid-May 1876, I went on my final campaign. This is important. Don't let my military career discourage you and think badly of me. Because on June 25th, 1876, I was a soldier and fought like a soldier and died like a soldier.
My name is Harmer Knott. I was born in Dammendorf, Prussia. I came to America to earn a living and be with my family. Residing in Brandonville, Schuylkill County, with my brother William. I did not cherish working in the coal mines. I was not a young man, so I moved around a lot. In January, actually, January the 20th, I was working in Rochester, New York area, and I saw a recruiting poster for soldiers to join the 7th Cavalry. Went into the building and talked to Lieutenant Forrest. He had me raise my right hand and swear an oath of enlistment. I was then a member of the United States Cavalry. I was sent west with a few other young men and assigned to Company F of the 7th Cavalry under Captain Yates, a good soldier. I did not know very well my friend George, as we were in different companies. But our paths would lead to our final place in Fiddler's Green.
At 5 o'clock in the morning on the 17th of May, the bugles blared out. Stand to horse, calling us to tear down our tents and prepare to move. We were at Fort Lincoln, as I had stated. Tents were torn down, packed, and ready to move by 6:30 in the morning. By 7, we were all mounted and ready to move.
The morning was raw and cold. A heavy mist hung over the region. Most of the boys seemed to be in a bad mood. By a little after 7, we started to move. The heavy wagons of the baggage train moved out in fours. You know, there was about 114 wagons, each drawn by 6 mules, followed by the cavalry. We marched around the parade grounds of the cavalry barracks, passing in front of the officer quarters, affording the officers, wives, and families a last look at the 7th.
Our band, mounted on white horses, led the martial parade around the inner area. Our guidons were all flapping and snapping in the breeze. We marched toward the gate in columns of 4s, while the band played over and over again the tune, "The Girl I Left Behind Me." Passing Laundress Row, there I felt emotion for the first time. I saw the wives and the children of some of the soldiers standing there, and they lined the road. Mothers with teary eyes held their little ones for a last look at the departing fathers. Their grief was audible, and the gestures was very emotional.
I remember seeing the women and children of the officers standing and staring. Hankies held to their eyes of the women, small children waving and staring. A strange last look at these people brought forth a strange inner feeling, a feeling of sadness overwhelmed me. I looked around at over 300 mounted soldiers and civilians marching out of this fort. We picked up our pace a little and marched past the Indian quarters, which we were obliged to pass. There stood old men, squaws, and young Indian children, singing or rather moaning those strange Indian songs. Some of the squaws crouched on the ground to burden with trouble. They didn't even look at us.
As soon as we marched out of the fort, the sun started to break through the heavy mist. My horse, he was glistened with sweat upon his sides and neck. As we were marching, a strange sight appeared above and ahead of us. A mirage. A mirage appeared in the low hanging clouds above us. There in the sky, the plain sight was our column of cavalry reflected on the clouds and meeting the sky and earth, stretching into the distance. Was this an omen, a premonition, and the supernatural reflected upon the morning sky?
We made 14 miles that first day. And early in the afternoon, we camped on the Hart River. Funny, after we watered and fed the horses, we were mustered for pay. We were paid off by the companies, and there was a lot of grumbling by the men. Seems Custer wouldn't let us get paid while we were in the fort, fearing we would hit the red light district of Bismarck. Mrs. Custer and Lieutenant Calhoun's wife, who was General Custer's sister, rode along with us on the first day. They rode up close to the general. You know, I can still see the general in my eyes, my mind's eye. Oh, what a sight. He was wearing a broad western hat with a low crown and a white brim, grayish in color. He'd cut his long yellow hair short just before we left, and was wearing a buckskin suit with fringes on the legs and sides of his arms. He had 2 bulldog revolvers and a Remington sporting rifle carried in a scabbard. He also carried a hunting knife in a fringed beaded buckskin case.
You know, I looked at the general. You know, at that time we called him the general, although he was only a lieutenant colonel, out of respect for his brevet rank in the Civil War. He was riding his horse, a sorrel horse called Vic, short for victory. Vic was a large horse with 4 white stockings and a blaze on his head. Our horses in the 7th were separated by color and company. Companies B, D, I, L, and H rode blood-colored sorrels. C, G, K, and F rode sorrels. Company A rode coal black horses. Company E rode grays. And finally, Company N rode a mixture of different colored horses. My God, we were a fine regiment. And there wasn't a man in it that didn't believe it was the greatest cavalry outfit in the entire United States Army.
Well, for the next couple of weeks, our routine was the same. Marching and camping. Marching and camping. Sometimes it was miserable. It was especially wet May and early June. And sometimes we'd be in the process of setting up our pump tents, and it would rain cats and dogs. A cold spring rain is quite discouraging to both soldier and horse.
Our method of camp was the same. Whenever possible, we would camp along a stream. Usually there was plenty of good water and wood and grazing grass nearby. While marching, we divided into 2 wings of 6 troops each. Major Reno and Captain Benteen commanding each. The 2 wings would make up 2 sides of an oblong camp, with the flank of each wing reflecting on the river or creek bank. Next to the river and between the wings, the headquarters tent would be set up.
Our horses were tied to picket lines, ropes tied between 2 wagons. Each company had its own picket line. We would dismount, unsaddle, lead our horses to water. Then we would stake them out to graze under guard of one of our troopers. Then we would set up our pup tents and place our saddles and gear about 9 feet in front of the tents.
The company cooks would be preparing supper. We usually had our own beef herd along and always slaughtered enough beeves for a day's use. After chow, we would bring our horses to the picket line. We would also post guards and main guard of 4 non-coms and 12 to 14 privates. It didn't take long to get into the swing of things, and most of the time everything went off like clockwork. Such was the trooper's daily life while on campaign.
We usually didn't see much of the general. He was usually out in front, scouting with 1 or 2 of the troops. He was a mighty good at laying out the best trails and picking the campsites. There was always a battalion of 3 troops marching in the rear guard and a battalion riding on each flank. That way, we were always ready for any surprise or emergency.
As we entered the Badlands, we rode toward the Little Missouri River. The Badlands, as seen from a distance, present a very striking and picturesque appearance. Sort of like a ruined world. It seemed burnt, upturned, and seared by fire. It also lightened by occasional patches of red and yellow clay, which glistens in the sunlight. There are tortuous ravines, by horrible bluffs, making a march on horseback difficult to say the least. General Sully once said about the Badlands, "Gentlemen, it looks like the bottom of hell with the fires gone out." This place was not unknown to me, as I had passed this way back in 1873 in the Yellowstone expedition when I got sick.
While on the march, days were usually hot and the evenings were cool. Sometimes it rained heavily. Other days, your throat had the taste of the Sahara. One strange day, I believe it was the 1st of June, it actually snowed. Such were the Badlands, a place God seemed to forget. Our uniform regulation in the field was virtually non-existent. The officers never reprimanded anybody. I rode with my blue army coat or blouse tied to the rear of my saddle, only wearing my army-issued gray flannel shirt, and a pair of sky blue trousers with the reinforced legs to guard against chafing from the saddle. A pair of knee-length boots also, very hot. Oh, I wish I would have worn the low-ankle boots instead. I had a privately purchased belt, large loops for my carbine ammunition, and also a small belt to hold pistol ammo. I bought a straw hat to wear. It was much more comfortable than this army issue.
As day after day passed, we marched, we were sore. Saddles seemed to find that one point where you were uncomfortable, and no matter how you reached or turned or shook or moved, you just can't find a good comfortable place to place your behind. Although with all the discomfort, I still felt you were somebody when you were on a good horse, with a carbine dangling from its small leather ring socket on your McClellan saddle, and a Colt Army revolver strapped on your hip, and 100 rounds of ammunition in your web belt. And on your saddle pockets you were a cavalryman of the 7th Regiment. You were a part of a proud outfit that had a fighting reputation, and you were ready for a fight or a frolic.
June 9th, we marched a hard 32 miles, very hard, both on horses and men. The next day on the 10th, General Terry, who was in charge of the whole expedition, ordered Major Reno out to scout. From our camp on the Powder River, I was very tired from yesterday's march, and in the evening we got orders that my company, F, would proceed along with companies B, C, E, I, and L. A Gatling gun, 100 pack mules on a scout. Some say General was angry at General Terry for selecting Major Reno for the scout.
My company L was also on this scout. I knew we were all angry, being very tired from the previous day's march. We didn't want to go on another long hike. We were ordered to travel in a clockwise direction heading along the Powder River and then come back north looking for any Indian trails. We had some Arikara Indian scouts, we generally called them Reeds, along with us. My God, they were a dirty looking bunch of Indians. They were medium size, quite dark, and had a dirty appearance about them. They sort of looked like Negro washerwomen. They were sworn enemies of the Sioux, though, and were led by a chief scout, Bloody Knife, who was Custer's favorite scout.
The scout was a long and hard march once again. We did locate an Indian lodge site that once held probably 400 lodges. The Reeds also found an immense trail leading west towards the Rosebud Valley. We then went into a patrol base, meaning we were on alert, carbines at the ready. On the 19th of June, we returned to the Yellowstone, linked back up with our command. I was very tired. My horse was tired. I checked my horse for signs of galling.
Some rumors started among the boys that the General Custer fully disobeyed the orders that were given to him. It was said he was ordered to follow the trail we had found on the scout with Major Reno. I heard one soldier say, it was said that General Custer was given a certain latitude of action. He was also given a certain specific direction, which to my knowledge was not carried out. Whether he was justified in ignoring them under the circumstances, it's not for me to say. For that sake, I wish he had not.
On the 22nd of June, we, the 7th Cavalry, separated from General Terry. We were traveling light. We only marched 12 miles this day, and in the evening, Custer and the officers held a conference. You could feel the tension beginning to build. We were more on alert. Our security was heightened. I remember thinking, my God, we're getting deeper and deeper into Indian territory. Captain Ben Tain ordered us to take extra salt along. You know what this meant? We were going to be living off of mule for horse meat. But you know one thing, I don't think any of us were really worried. We knew there'd be some hard fighting, but you know, a soldier always believes that the other fellow is going to get it, never himself.
In the morning, word was sent around camp that mail was going to be sent out. Many of the soldiers quickly wrote their letters. I didn't have anybody to write to, so I sent nothing out. Apparently all the letters were sent out to the boat on the Yellowstone and sent back to the fort and points back east. We marched off in columns of fours once again. General Custer and Colonel Gibbon, along with General Terry, watched our departure. You know, I can still see the generals all sitting on their horses with their color bearers behind them. The regimental flag of the 7th and another sergeant holding Custer's old 3rd Cavalry Division flag. It was a remarkable view.
On the March of the 23rd, we were informed that all bugle calls would be suspended for the duration of the march. We would be normally aroused by the guard in the morning for boots and saddles, and at the appointed time we started out. We crossed and recrossed the stream many times during the course of the march. We started on the trail made by Major Reno a few days ago. After 30 miles of riding, we made camp about 4:30 p.m.
On the 24th, we started out as usual at 5 a.m. in the morning. After a little while, the Crow Scouts came riding hard into the column and stated they found signs of the Indians. As we marched on the trail, it was growing fresher by the hour. While riding, I was looking at the ground for any signs. Rumors were flying around as to how soon we would find the Indians. But the contact never came, and we made camp at 7 p.m.
This march was quite tiresome, for we were constantly halting, letting our scouts check out things. After we watered and fed our horses, we finally had the opportunity to lie down and take a rest. We cooked up some coffee and hardtack and just tried to relax. This spot that we bivouacked on was one of the most beautiful places. On our right rose a bluff, between which the river, a clear, cool running stream with level, grassy plateaus, some 200 yards wide, and all around were masses of wild rose bushes in full bloom. It was easy to see why the river was given this name.
This evening we could see General Custer near his tent as we walked around. He seemed sad in the gathering twilight. Soon a gathering of officers were around his tent waiting for instructions. After they broke up, a small group of the officers gathered outside their bivouacs. Soon there followed the singing of songs. Famous Annie Laurie, Little Footsteps, Soft and Gentle, the doxology. Then they finished it off with For He's a Jolly Good Fellow.
Our rest was short-lived. For a few hours later, about 10 o'clock, we were awakened and ordered to saddle up for a night march. Boots and saddles were called, and we once again crawled into the saddle and marched off into the dark, still following the rosebud.
As we marched off into the night, an intense silence pervaded the line of march. No voices of the men were heard, but the solemn tramp of the cavalry column and the occasional bay of a horse. A night march in Indian territory is one of the most impressive incidents I've ever experienced. We were on the track of a mysterious enemy. The country over which you are marching is to you an unread chapter. You can't see much at all. You are conscious of men and horses moving ahead of you a few places. You cannot define any particular object, not even your own horse's head. All you hear is the steady tramp, tramp, tramp of the iron-hoofed cavalry, broken by an occasional stumble and a half-smothered curse of an irate trooper. The jingle of the carbines and the sling belts, and the snorting of horses as they grope their way through the eternal dust, which the rider can feel in his throat. Once in a while, a match struck by a trooper to light his pipe would flash the gloom. Then darkness would once again assert itself.
We halted sometime around 2 a.m. I think we were waiting for the scouts to come back. The men removed their saddles to help relieve the horses. Some men, like all soldiers, tried to get a quick nap. After daylight came, we tried to make coffee, but the water was so alkaline it was terrible to drink. Most of the time I didn't sleep, but just talked to some of my comrades about what was happening.
Shortly before 8, on the 25th, we saw the general come riding in barebacked and bareheaded, calling some of the officers to come to him. We all wondered what was going on. About 8 o'clock in the morning, we once again saddled up, and we were on the move once more. We were moving up the divide between the Rosebud and the Little Bighorn River. We stopped about 10:30 in the morning, and we came into a ravine.
Just about 10:30 on the 25th, Captain Godfrey came riding around the men and horses, ordering us to keep as quiet as possible. We heard through the men that the Indians had found a box of hardtack and knew our whereabouts. They were watching us.
Here it is, Sunday morning. We were halted, standing and holding our horses' reins. Most of the men were quiet, just caught up in their own thoughts. Quietly, word was passed down the line to mount. We were very tired by now, having marched most of the night. The horses were thirsty. They hadn't had a drink since the day before. You know, it would be easy to say we were thinking of glory on this hot Sunday in June, but I reckon what most of the boys were thinking was how good a nice bottle of beer might taste right about now.
Somehow, I knew that something was going to happen pretty soon. I figured that in a little while I would be shot at plenty. Shortly after we mounted and moved off, the command was given to 4 battalions. Major Reno in the advance took companies M, A, G, and about 30 of the Indian scouts. Captain Benteen separated with troops D, H, and K. He had about 125 men with him, and they rode off into the dust to our left. We stayed with General Custer, along with troops C, E, I, and L. And our troop F, we knew that about 12 to 15 miles ahead were the hostiles. I could feel my muscles tighten up. The adrenaline was starting to flow.
It was rough rolling country we were going over. It was hard on the horses. My horse stumbled a few times, once throwing me hard against the peak of my McClellan saddle. I could see Lieutenant Gibson, who was riding ahead of our column. He kept signaling to keep coming as he could see no Indians. For over 2 hours we went up and down those rolling hills and spotted nothing. I think we covered about 7 miles.
We were riding pretty hard by the early afternoon, and sometime afternoon Captain Benteen moved his battalion off to the left. Shortly after this, we spotted some Indians in the distance ahead of us. This got the boys' blood up, and some cheering was let out. The horses started prancing as we were ready. About 2:30, we saw Captain Benteen and his troops riding to join us. We halted again. I was sweating profusely in the warm afternoon heat. My gray military shirt was soaked with sweat. I was watching intensely for any information that he could pick up.
Off in the distance, we could see Custer and a few of the officers gesticulating and discussing something up ahead. Then word came down the line of troopers that Custer just ordered Major Reno to attack. Attack. The scuttlebutt, as he is told Reno. You will charge down the valley and sweep everything that will come before you. Captain Benteen will take the extreme right. I will strike them on the opposite point, and we will crush them between us.
We watched Major Reno and his troops move off. We made comments to the friends we knew in the other companies. Some smiled, others just looked straight ahead. An eerie feeling passed over me. I watched those boys move off. I could feel that the death angel was very near. Was he putting his seal on those of us who within an hour would be lying dead upon the prairie? I finally got my head back together, and because my horse started to get a little skittish and I was having trouble controlling him, it was as though he knew something was in the wind.
As Major Reno's men moved off, I waved to a close friend of mine from Company A. He smiled and yelled back to me, "Adams, come on with the fighting men. Don't stay back with the coffee groupers." I just laughed and wished him luck. After the boys left, we started moving off. About 2:30, I checked my timepiece. We could see Reno's command off to our left and down the other side of the valley across the river. They seemed to be in a fast trot. We could see the general waving his hat and shouting and urging Reno on.
About 3:15, we could see Reno's men moving and forming into line. We could hear shooting. This first time I had a glimpse of the Indian village from the bluff we were on. My God, it's gigantic. What have we gotten ourselves into? We all know what happened to Major Reno and his command. They charged the Indian camp, and dismounted, remounted, and fell back to a tree line, made a stand, and remounted, and fled across the little Bighorn to the bluffs, where they made a heroic stand. But this is not my story. My story goes on from here.
Yes, my friends. We all know the story of Major Reno and Captain Benteen's stand and the heroics that were made there. But let us tell you of the Custer Battalion. As we marched along, sometimes at a trot, my horse was giving me some trouble. It was hard to keep him in line. He kept wanting to turn around and look behind us. It was starting to get me aggravated. Walt Rogers from Washington, PA was riding behind me and made the comment, "Adams, that horse of yours don't like keeping in company with the rest of us." I was just mad. I was a better horseman than this, and I finally got his attention by putting my spurs to him. We soon halted. "Holy Mother of Christ," I said to myself as I looked down the bluff to the Indian encampment. I soon had a lump the size of an apple in my dry throat.
When we formed up this morning, I was number 3 man in a 4-man section. I was not going to be a horse holder today. Actually, I hated the job. There's nothing more difficult than trying to manage your own horse and 3 other horses while in combat. Number 1 man was Pat Rudden from New Jersey. Number 2 was Richie Sanders, a young lad from Nova Scotia. And the number 4 man was Fred Nursey, born somewhere in England. He was our horse holder this day. And as we moved up the bluffs, we were all excited. We could see the Indians down near the river. Captain Yates hollered, get ready, boys. We're moving with Troop B." Somebody yelled, "Here we go, boys!" Quickly, Troops E and F moved off to our left and down the steep coulee. We moved off to the right on the ridge's edge. After we left E and F troops, we moved to the right up a small ridge. We could see Indians forming in and around the ridge. We started taking long-range shots at them. I started firing my carbine, a 45-70, taking careful aim, carefully loading, firing, and hoping that the gun would not foul. I had over 100 rounds of carbine ammo with me, and about 4:30 we moved off at a quick gallop to a hill about 400 yards ahead. About 4:15, Troop B rides down close to the water. We are ordered to hold and give support for each troop. We sit atop our horses, firing shots into the Indians that are rapidly gathering in the coulee below. After about 20 minutes, each troop comes riding out of the coulee, and we turn to our right at a fast gallop. We ride up the coulee to link up with the rest of the command. My horse is struggling in the coulee. I seem to be falling back as other horses race past me. My carbine is binding hard against my left leg, and damn it, it seems as though my saddle is starting to slip.
My God, there seems to be Indians coming from every direction. We ride to the little hill. "Halt," came the sharp, quick order. "Prepare to fight on foot." Follows at once. I leap from my saddle and hand my reins to the number 4 man who remains in the saddle. The other men in my section link their horses to my horse, and we all rush forward to the skirmish line and drop to one knee. I glance back and I can see Bill Heath, an Englishman from the same county in Pennsylvania that I hail from. He leads our horses to the rear. I pull a cartridge from my ammo belt and place it in the breech. The sight that greeted my eyes was certainly discouraging. Not over 75 yards away, a large number of Indians are moving about in quick motion. Some are mounted on ponies, others are running on foot.
As we come up and out of the coulee, we can see Lieutenant Calhoun and his troops come L dismounted and in a skirmish line, firing at the advancing Indians. Some of Troop L fired at the Indians who followed out us to the coulee. We're riding hard now. Troop B stops ahead of us and dismounts. We continue on, following Custer toward the river. I hope the general knows what he's doing. Things are becoming confused. I hope there's a ford down there. My God, Indian warriors are coming up the coulees in great numbers. The firing was starting to pick up over in Company L. I loaded my carbine. I placed a well-aimed shot at a warrior who exposed his head above a small drop. He dropped out of sight. Did I hit him? I felt no remorse.
About 3:45, bullets start hitting close. to us. But they're coming from over our rear. What is happening there? Sweet Jesus, there are Indians coming to the great numbers directly in our front. We started out firing well-disciplined volleys, but now everything just load, aim, and shoot. I look at my ammo belt and I'm getting low on ammo. I have more ammo to my bags and my horse. Where are the horses? Where is he? Someone shouted, they're shooting at the horses from behind us. Good Lord, our horses are in jeopardy. Look, off to our right, C Troop is trying to make a charge. Lieutenant Calhoun cries out to cover C Company. I hear a dull thud, and I'm covered in blood on my left side. Oh, good Lord. Fred Walsh, our company trumpeter, is hit in the head by a bullet, and his brains have splattered all over me.
We're circling around. Our horse is reeling crazy like. He lets out a horrible noise. I look down on his shoulder, his blood streaming out of a wound. He's starting to lean heavily towards the right. In total fear, I spur him forward, trying to stay with my comrades. We're trying hard to get out where we can see the general. Oh, God, in 1 minute of mad roaring about it, I can see Lieutenant Calhoun's men being overrun by hundreds of Indians. They're killing the soldiers as they lay wounded. Pain. A pain I never felt like before on the side of my knee. My horse drops. I try to roll off to the side, but he's lying on my wounded leg. He's struggling to get up, and every move he makes causes me more pain. Here's my carbine, my pistol. I'm trapped under the weight of a dead or dying horse. I see my comrades ride off, shouting and shooting. Oh, God, what went wrong here? Indians, they're coming up fast. I pull my pistol and fire. The smoke, the dust, it obscures my view with pain. Oh, pain in my shoulder. I'm hit again. Dear God, my brother, his family, will we ever know? It's quiet. Things are fading. I feel sort of comfortable. There's no pain. And look, the sky, it's so blue. There's arrows flying overhead. Who's that? Who's that standing over me? The sky is so bright. He bends and he looks at me. I stare straight in the eye. He's brown. He wears ribbons in his hair. There's red and yellow circles painted on his face. And he smiles at me. Darkness. Quiet. No pain. I'm in fiddler's green.
I am still startled by the death of my friend. I look around more, and more of my comrades are falling or fleeing. What should I do? I load, I fire, I drop to one knee. I drop another one. But as soon as you kill one, another one appears. Damn, where are these arrows coming from? One hits me a glancing blow on the cheek. Another hits the flat cover of my holster. I get up and run to this cover of the dead horse. Off to our right is an intense amount of rifle fire. More Indians appear. Our position is collapsing. I get up and start running toward where I saw our horses go. I crest the top of a hill and I can see our horses. Indians are running up the hill toward them, waving blankets in the air, trying to frighten them. Some break free from the holders. Sweet mother of mercy. I see my horse run over the hill. I look, and there is he, trying to chase them down. I stop, turn, and fire my last 2 rounds of carbine ammo. What now? I draw my pistol and fire at every Indian I see. Look out, horses are running madly around. Maybe I can catch one and make my escape. There, close beside me, is Charlie Perkins. He is working his carbine as fast as his nimble fingers would allow. He smiles at me when all of a sudden a bullet smashes into his hand. He just holds up his hand and stares at the blood running off, when another bullet hits him square in the face. Why am I watching this macabre play unfold? There is an Indian sneaking up on me. I fire. He drops. Willie Harrison screams in a high-pitched voice, "The Injuns is behind us!" I turn around and I see a tall Indian, naked to the waist, swinging a heavy club and hitting wounded troopers who are on their knees. Oh, it's First Sergeant Jimmy Butler. The Indian crushed his skull with one blow after another. After he looks at his victim and lets out a loud war whoop, I raise my pistol, I take aim and fire. He falls on top of Jimmy. I am starting into a wild scene as the warriors charge down upon us. I fire my pistol, but they still keep coming. I try to reload with the last 4 rounds I find in my belt. My fingers just seem like they won't work. I drop one bullet. I load the remaining 3 rounds. God, it's too late. The Indians are on top of me. I fire and fire. Mounted warriors ride past me. Smoke is everywhere. It's burning my eyes. It seems the Indians started fires to scare the horses. I see the Indians everywhere. Why are they leaving me alone? There is no place to run to now. I see troopers lying in every position possible. Blackness. There is no sound. Everything seems to be in a deep muffle. I am still alive, although I am struggling to breathe. What is that warm flowing on my neck? I realize I'm face down in the dirt, struggling to breathe. If only I could get some air, I could get up. Something hard just forced my head further into the ground. God almighty, the pain. My skull feels as though it's going to burst into flame. I scream, but nothing comes out of my mouth. Strange, I can smell the sweetness of the dry prairie grass. Then anything starts to fade. Is that my boyhood home? Strange feeling now. It is as though someone is closing a heavy curtain around me. Things are fading and fading, and then it goes black, and the pain stops. Once again, another soldier in Fiddler's Green. Thank you. Why I wrote this up is the new analogy of the Battle of the Little Bighorn is the actual dying of the 260 troopers on Custer Hill. It took 5 minutes. That's how long it took to kill them all. 5 minutes. It wasn't a long, prolonged battle, shooting, carrying on, jumping and diving and all of that. It was 5 minutes and they were all dead. And they were, afterwards the women came up and they horribly mutilated most of the soldiers. Custer was found with a wound in his side and a bullet in his temple, on his left side, which people speculated that he committed suicide. Well, he was right-handed. He wouldn't have shot himself in the left side with it. He was right-handed. He was probably shot, and he had a, he was basically one of the only ones who wasn't really mutilated. Tom Custer, his brother, his heart was ripped out. His head was flattened to the size of a pancake, and every soldier there was stripped naked and sliced and cut. The Indian method was to cut your thighs, your feet, and you cut your heads off. A lot of them cut their heads off because then you could never roam around in the afterworld as a full person. But it's just a really interesting thing, and I think it was just neat to, well, not neat for the guys from Schuylkill County, but it was interesting that they were there and possibly witnessed that. I'm sure that's what it was, but I was totally amazed at that new analogy that it was only 5 minutes that it took to kill that whole 268 men. That's how many Indians came up and attacked them. What happens is, the way they analyze it today is it's panic. Everything collapses and nobody knows what to do. When all the officers are dead, nobody knows where to go, what to do, what are we supposed to do, and they just start formulating something other. And the sad part about it is the Indians had no method. They didn't have Crazy Horse saying, okay, man, we're going to move the Sioux up here on the left and the Cheyennes on the right. They just attacked out of sheer hatred in that respect. And as much as it goes, this was the Indians' greatest victory in the Indian Wars, but it was also their worst defeat, because what comes after this is more and more horribleness for the Indian nations. So, once again, thank you.
Feel like you were there? I tell you, gentlemen, thank you so very much. A live presentation will never do anything you watch on those flat little screens we all stare at. This was truly an honor and privilege. Very well. Well, thank you for doing it.
Question?
A few more questions? Yes.
I know, like, Custer's buried at West Point. I know where some of the guys buried. How about these guys? Do we know what happened to the remains at all?
Yeah. Reno and Benteen came over the day after. Right. And they approached the field there. But they had 2 shovels. So they couldn't bury anybody. So what they did is they dug a little dirt out and put the body there and put weeds and the grass over top of it. But by the time Terry got there, the wolves had drugged them all off on all different, like, so what they could gather, they gathered all in one big grave. The monument at the Little Bighorn, that's where they're all the enlisted guys are.
I can explicate on that too. So, in 1878, a man from Lebanon County, his name was George K. Sanderson. He eventually was already had a long, lengthy military career. He led a party to rebury the individuals who were not sent back to the East Coast usually, or buried somewhere else. So if you weren't an officer, if you were one of these guys, let's say, for example, they then reburied them kind of how it sits today if you would go and visit Little Bighorn, and then he erected the first monument there.
He erected the one that's over the enlisted guy? Yeah, because they didn't know who was who. The guys were so horribly mutilated that they couldn't tell. That occasionally they'd find something like a ring or a finger or somebody that they knew who it was. I always thought it was interesting that the women did that. The women did all the mutilation, not the warriors.
The women Indians.
Yes.
And I recall, Sitting Bull was pretty upset about it because he said they shouldn't have been doing that. It's going to bring bad news, bad only to them. And he was right.
We go on and on after that, and it's nothing but a downhill slide for the Indians. Yeah. What do we call it? Manifest destiny. You move out there, but what I tried to do with this was try to bring the life of there's a lot of articles and a lot of diaries and a lot of things of that point of leaving and going to the Little Bighorn. That's where I get all this stuff, of what they did and how they felt and all of this stuff and all of that. So that you can add in, which they would have seen and been part of. The dying part, I have no idea. I'm pretty sure it would have been a pretty damn horrible situation to be in. I always thought, as a cavalryman, would be the worst possible thing you could do was look up over the hill and see your horse running away. Oh man, what are they doing now? But
That's many hours for you.
Character, how family? Your character, how family?
What's that?
Would your character have family?
I can't find anyone.
No.
I looked on genealogy, everything. He's listed in 1840. He was born in 1850. Is there a census in 50 or 60? One of them, he's listed there. I think he was in the Civil War too, but I can't. I got his records from the one book that the guy wrote. He has everybody in there. And when I saw this guy, I thought, man, George is a good guy. He's a typical Schuylkill County guy, drunk on duty, and arrested. So he and Harmon now, I only found that by accident one day looking through the Miner's Journal, and it was in a couple weeks after the battle, and it said William Knout from Brandonville just let the office know that his brother, who lived with him, was killed at the Little Bighorn.
Yeah.
So I've never known him. There's another guy from over at Lebanon, Samuel Shea. He was a teacher.
Yeah, from Jonestown area.
Yeah.
So the story with him is he lived in Jonestown. His father was an educator as well, but a politician, and then later an individual who published a local newspaper, which at that time probably would have been the Lebanon Courier, but he didn't stay there because he got way more involved in politics. So Samuel Shea, supposedly the mythology is that they went in to recruit and they came to Lebanon County. Probably almost like the same where you would have saw like a broadside, let's say, for example. But most rumors want to say that Custer actually came there. I don't know how true that is, and I highly doubt that. And then he was so enthralled, I guess, with this, and he was still really young and being a school teacher in a really, really small town. Actually, he didn't enlist right away then. He ended up enlisting in 1875 in Baltimore, Maryland, and then went west. He was part of Company C, so he was under Tom Custer.
Well, if they wouldn't have left Adams out early off his part labor, he would have survived. He would have still a nose cow, and they would have. But and William Heath, I don't know if everybody knows the story of William Heath. He was from Girardville originally, but he lived in Tamaqua. Many years after the war, his wife told him there was an article in the paper the local newspaper looking for a William Heath of the 7th U.S. Cavalry. Well, Heath is listed on all the monuments and all the rolls, I have all of that, as being killed at the Battle of the Little Bighorn. So, Vince Genovese from Miners will wrote a book about this. Was he one of the Custer survivors, which there's a lot of these phony stories about this, guys who survived the Battle of the Little Bighorn. But what I was telling my friend here about with another Custer fan and all that was there's just been an article out about Company L, which he was in also. He was a farrier, so he would have been a horse holder by rights. And they found out now recently that right the day before the battle, a bunch of guys from Company L deserted. So it was probably him. And he got all shook up when somebody in the paper said, hey, is there a William Heath living up here? You know, but they didn't look for you at that time. And the whole story goes on. He stumbled across the plains of the Badlands and was picked up by a family who nursed him back to health and all of this kind of stuff. It's an interesting story, but what are you going to do? He's buried up in Tamaqua in the cemetery up there. In that one where you're coming out of town, or well, I don't know what the name of that is. Any other questions? Was General Custer a creep? Was he the bigot? Was he the person that everybody hated? General Custer was a fantastic general. Was he a prima donna? He was one of the finest prima donnas you'd ever get in life, you know? He was one of those guys that believed in Victorian things and like knights and loyalty and honor and all of that stuff. Did he make a mistake at the Little Bighorn? This is one that drives me crazy every time I hear this. I could roll on the floor in pain when they say, well, they split his command. Well, that's what they did in the cavalry. You split your command into 3 battalions. It has nothing to do with, you know, he split his command and screwed them all up. The guy I would blame for the loss of the Battle of the Little Bighorn is Major Reno. He was supposed to attack the Indian village. He charged toward it and stopped. Got off his horse as they fired at him. All the Indians got all excited and attacked him. They fled back up over the hill again. So this left Custer. Custer was supposed to go around the other end and attack from the other end. So if Reno was going, they would have pinched him in the middle. He never showed up. So he goes down in history as the guy that didn't do too good. And Benteen, he hated Custer. And there's always speculation that Benteen didn't come to the aid of Custer again. But there's no cavalry officer who would have done that because he had other friends that were in that battalions, you know, that would have been there. And that's just not feasible. But he did hate Custer for something that happened back in '68, the Washita. Were they brutal? Yes. Did they do terrible things to the Indians? Yes. Did the Indians know what they were doing and why they were doing these things? No. They lived out there their whole lives. How would they possibly know what to, you know, what I'm hostile because I want to stay on my own land and shoot buffalo, you know? At a time in our history.
Do you think the cavalry was justified in
Killing the Indians?
Yeah.
Following orders.
They were following orders. The governor, or the guy that was in charge of Indian affairs, deemed them hostile. And he says, I'm turning over all of this to the army. And their orders were, if they don't go back to the reservation, we're going to kill you. It's a different time and place. You know, now we have CNN and Fox and NBC and everybody putting on a fit, you know, and we have General Terry being executed, and you know, it was a different time and a different place. We didn't have respect. Believe it or not, Custer did have remarkable respect for the Indians. That's why he had all those Indians over with him. Yeah. Not all Indians hated the cavalry, the white man. The Rippers, the Reeds, and all of those guys, they hated the Sioux and that stuff. And they were fighting with themselves for what, 1,000 years? Yeah. The Indians' biggest problem was they never combined into one solid group with one leader and a few generals.
Almost every individual.
Yeah, they fought as an individual.
Was Sitting Bull actually there?
Sitting Bull, Crazy Horse, and Crazy Horse and Gall were the two remarkable leaders. But and what I'm saying that is they had no method of it. When they said they came up out of the pool, They were following Crazy Horse. I guess a bunch of guys in camp said, "Wow, there goes Crazy Horse, let's go with him." So they all rushed up the hill that way, you know, and there was no, they didn't sit down and formulate a plan to attack Custer. Custer got caught, blindsided, outnumbered. I had a hat one time, it was a 7th U.S. Cavalry, and it said, "Just too many Indians." Yeah.
So every time you get a piece of Black Hills gold jewelry, you can think of, that's what set off the little Bighorn.
Exactly, yeah. There was a Far Side cut from cartoon one time, this was really neat. It said today's June 24th, the day before the battle, right? And it says June 24th, the 7th Cavalry's camp, and they're all standing around going, "We're number 1. Just like a football team. "Yeah, we're number 1. And the next day.
What a difference a day makes.
Yeah. Wow. Well, once again, thank you. I appreciate you coming.